Hello, everyone. Today, as I was wandering around, I stumbled upon an old, abandoned canoe lying out under the sun. Instead of letting it rust away and get damaged by time, I decided to bring it back, repair it, and transform it into a new, unique canoe. At first, I thought I could just use my motorbike to tow the old canoe back, but it wouldn't budge at all. So, I switched over to a tractor to get that extra pulling force. Once we finally towed the canoe back to the workshop, we began the first step in the recycling process, removing all the old parts. The body of the canoe was badly damaged, with peeling paint and rusted sections everywhere. Carefully, we started disassembling each component, from rotting wood pieces to rusty metal parts. We continued by completely removing the damaged hull, carefully stripping away layers of rust and decay to prepare for a sturdy new frame. Every inch of the old exterior was examined as we dismantled it, making sure that only the clean slate of a solid base remained. Once the hull was clear, it was time to focus on the engine and propeller system, perhaps the most critical parts of this transformation. Given how long the canoe had been abandoned, the engine was in a rough state, with most components worn out beyond repair. Carefully, we dismantled each piece, checking if anything could be salvaged, though unfortunately, most of it was beyond reuse. We began by power washing the entire structure, blasting away years of dirt, grime, and rust to get a clearer view of what we were working with. After the wash, we continued with the disassembly, focusing next on removing the heavy engine mounts and the worn-out rotating shafts. These parts were in especially poor condition, with rust practically eating through the metal, making them unstable and unsafe. We carefully removed each mount, loosening bolts that had been stuck for ages and detaching the engine framework piece by piece. It was tough, but this thorough breakdown was essential for ensuring the canoe would be solid and ready for its rebuild. We powered up the saw again and began cutting along the length of the canoe. With each pass, we could feel the anticipation building as we approached the moment of separation. Once the cuts were complete, we switched gears and used a sturdy iron bar to pry the upper frame away from the lower hull. We used water to thoroughly rinse away all the dust and debris that had accumulated on the structure. We then took several sheets of foam and stacked them on top of the canoe's frame, securing them tightly together. This layer of foam would help us shape the distinctive contours of the shark design we envisioned. Once the foam was in place, we grabbed a permanent marker and began sketching out the desired shape on the top section. As the outline took form, we could see the shark's sleek profile beginning to emerge, and excitement filled the workshop. With our design clearly marked, we switched gears and started trimming away any excess material. Using both a knife and the saw, we carefully carved along the lines we had drawn, refining the shape with each cut. This part of the process was thrilling, as we slowly sculpted the foam into a three-dimensional representation of our vision. The transformation was significant, and with every slice, the canoe was becoming more and more like the shark we had imagined. It was amazing to witness our idea coming to life as we meticulously worked to perfect the design. We carefully trimmed any rough edges and imperfections. After that, we grabbed some sandpaper and began the meticulous task of sanding the foam down to a smooth finish. We mixed a small batch of water and cement, creating a paste that we carefully applied to the surface of the canoe. As we brushed it on, we made sure to cover every inch of the foam, ensuring a solid foundation for what was to come. After allowing the cement to dry for a bit, we moved on to the next step, applying a special adhesive. This glue would help bind the surfaces together even more securely. We prepared a special adhesive designed for fabric, which we would use to attach fabric panels to the outer layer of the canoe. This step was crucial for adding both aesthetic appeal and additional protection to our shark design. Carefully, we spread the adhesive onto the outer surface, ensuring even coverage before laying down the fabric. Next, I took a piece of corrugated metal and began applying the adhesive to the fabric sheets, adhering them firmly to the surface. The unique texture of the metal would help create an interesting pattern and give the canoe a more dynamic look. We pressed the fabric down firmly, ensuring it was well bonded and smooth. After the adhesive dried, we switched back to the saw to cut through the layered materials. With precise cuts, we shaped the fabric into rigid plastic-like strips, enhancing the structure's durability. Once the fabric layer had dried and the adhesive had set, creating a solid and sturdy outer surface, we carefully flipped the canoe over to access the underside. It was time to remove the foam pieces that had served as our initial shaping guide. As we pried off the foam, we marveled at the transformation that had taken place. The sleek lines and contours of the shark shape were now visible, and the sturdy fabric layer gave it a striking appearance. With each foam piece we removed, we felt a sense of accomplishment as the true form of our creation emerged. We polished the rotating shafts of the propeller and the engine components. This step was crucial for not only improving the aesthetics, but also ensuring that all parts were free from rust and debris, ready for the final touch. Once everything was smooth and shiny, we moved on to the exciting part, painting. As the paint dried, we could already imagine the finished product gliding through the water. Next up was the engine repair, a critical component of our project. We began by thoroughly cleaning and disassembling the engine parts, taking our time to ensure that we understood how everything fit together. This was an essential step to ensure that we could address any issues and restore the engine to peak performance. We focused first on polishing the exhaust components and the exhaust manifold. These parts often accumulate grime and carbon buildup, so we spent some time scrubbing them down to their original shine. After polishing, we used gasoline to clean the parts further, effectively removing any lingering residues that could affect performance. With the exhaust components gleaming, we turned our attention to the main body of the engine. We polished the engine casing and the engine cover, ensuring that every surface was clean and free of dirt. We then grabbed some fine sandpaper and brushes to clean around the engine. Once the exterior was spotless, we turned our focus to the interior of the engine, particularly the areas where the cylinders would be placed. Next, we tackled the engine cover. Using the same fine sandpaper and brushes, we worked to remove any grime and restore its shine. We then shifted our focus to sourcing usable bolts and cylinders for the engine. After a thorough examination, we identified several bolts that were still in good condition and could be reused. Next, we turned our attention to repairing the crankshaft of the engine. This crucial component needed to be in excellent condition for optimal performance. We started by using gasoline to thoroughly clean the area around the crankshaft, removing any grime and old oil that had accumulated over time. Once it was clean, we switched to a polishing machine to give the crankshaft a smooth finish. The machine helped eliminate any rough spots, ensuring that the surface was as flawless as possible. After polishing, we followed up with fine sandpaper to make sure there were no imperfections left behind. After completing the polishing and sanding, we knew it was important to remove any residual moisture that could lead to corrosion later on. We used an air blower to thoroughly dry the crankshaft, blowing away any water or cleaning solution that might have lingered in the crevices. Next, we turned our focus to cleaning the pistons, an essential part of the engine that directly affects performance. We began by carefully removing the piston rings from each piston. To clean the ring grooves where the piston rings seat, we used fine sandpaper. This step was crucial, as any debris or carbon buildup in these grooves could prevent the rings from sealing properly. This allows us to access the piston pins and the surrounding areas for a thorough cleaning. Using a specialized cleaning solution, we scrubbed the piston surface and removed any carbon deposits that had accumulated. Once we were satisfied with the cleaning process, we utilized an air blower to blow out any remaining dirt and moisture from the pistons. With the pistons cleaned and dried, we reinstalled the piston rings back into their respective grooves, making sure they were seated properly. Next, we focused on polishing and cleaning the exhaust ports, another essential part of the engine that plays a crucial role in ensuring efficient performance. Using a combination of brushes and polishing compounds, we carefully scrubbed the surfaces of the exhaust ports. Using a wire brush and a polishing wheel, we meticulously polished each bolt and nut, removing any rust and dirt. Next is polishing the starter and spark plugs. We began by removing the engine cover to give it the attention it deserved. After carefully detaching it, we set about polishing the surface, ensuring it was free of scratches and blemishes. Once the polishing was complete, we prepped the engine for painting. We started by painting the engine block, selecting a durable and heat-resistant paint in a bold color that would stand out. After the engine block was complete, we moved on to the engine cover, carefully applying the same high-quality paint. This ensured a cohesive look throughout the engine. After allowing the paint to dry thoroughly, we were excited to begin the reassembly of the engine. BWE started by applying a small amount of lubricant to the inside of the engine block. With the lubricant applied, we carefully positioned the crankshaft into the engine block, ensuring that it was aligned correctly. Next, we turned our attention to the pistons. We carefully installed each piston onto the crankshaft, ensuring that they were correctly positioned for optimal movement. The connection between the pistons and the crankshaft was vital, as it would allow the pistons to transfer their motion to the crankshaft during the engine's operation. Once the pistons were installed, we carefully placed the cylinder head onto the pistons, aligning everything perfectly before securing it in place. We tightened the bolts on the cylinder head, ensuring a solid seal to prevent any leaks. We used a specialized gasket sealant, carefully applying a uniform bead around the edge of the engine block. We lined up the cover with the engine block, ensuring that all the holes aligned properly for the bolts. Once everything was in position, we began to secure the engine cover by tightening the bolts. With the main assembly of the engine complete, a secure exhaust connection would allow the gases to flow out smoothly and prevent any back pressure that could affect the engine's performance. Next, we installed the protective cover over the gear system. This cover played an essential role in shielding the gears from dirt, debris, and accidental contact. Finally, we moved on to the fuel intake system. We carefully attached each fuel line, making sure they were clean and free from any blockages. Each line was securely fitted to prevent leaks, ensuring a steady flow of fuel to the engine. We used a power buffer to smooth out the surface of the guard, removing any scratches or imperfections. The buffing process gave it a brilliant shine, making it look new and providing a smooth base for the paint. We tried starting the engine. With a rumble and a powerful roar, it sprang to life. With the engine in top condition, we shifted focus to the canoe's bottom dot to mend these. We applied a hardening epoxy mixture over each damaged section. Carefully, we filled every crack and depression, building up the layers to create a solid, even base. Using an electric sander, we meticulously leveled each patched area, blending it seamlessly with the rest of the hull. After achieving a uniform surface, we selected a marine-grade paint to coat the hull. We began by carefully positioning the propeller shaft through the hull, making sure it was perfectly aligned with the engine's drive system. Proper alignment was crucial to avoid any imbalance or strain during operation. We secured the shaft with precision, tightening each bolt to ensure a stable, secure fit. We noticed that the propeller control mechanism had developed rust over time. First, we carefully removed the control unit from the canoe and began disassembling it to access each component. Using a cleaning solution, we scrubbed away the rust and any buildup on the exterior, taking special care to avoid damaging any sensitive parts. Then, we used a power buffer to polish the surface, restoring its shine and functionality. Inside the unit, we inspected the internal components, removing any corroded areas and cleaning each part thoroughly. After a complete cleaning, we dried each part with an air blower to ensure no moisture was left behind that could lead to future rust. To prevent future rusting, we applied a fresh protective layer of a high-grade anti-corrosive sealant across all metal surfaces. This coating would help repel moisture and protect against any potential rust buildup. Once the sealant dried, we meticulously reassembled the unit, checking each piece for proper fit and alignment to ensure it would work as intended. Before reinstalling the unit, we tested it by connecting it to a power source. We tested various settings and movements, pleased to see the mechanism functioning smoothly and without any resistance. With the control mechanism fully restored, we reinstalled it on the canoe, ensuring it was tightly secured and ready to operate the propeller. This step was critical to ensure smooth maneuvering and control when we took the canoe out on the water. With the propeller control system fully restored, we turned our attention to painting the canoe's body. The fresh coat transformed the canoe, giving it a vibrant, like new appearance that was both sleek and eye-catching. We moved on to installing the movement transmission shaft. We coated the shaft with a layer of grease to ensure smooth movement and reduce friction. We carefully maneuvered it into its designated position, aligning it with precision so it could operate without a hitch once connected to the engine. Next, we lifted the engine and secured it onto the canoe. Finally, we installed the exhaust pipe, making sure it was firmly connected to direct emissions away from the boat's interior. With the engine and exhaust system securely installed, our next task was to create a fuel tank to power our shark-shaped canoe. We started by cutting a hole in the top of the canoe's hull, precisely sizing it to accommodate the steering mechanism. This opening would serve as the interface for our control system, allowing for smooth adjustments while we navigated the waters. After making the cut, we sanded the edges to remove any sharp bits, ensuring a safe and clean finish. Once the opening was prepared, we retrieved the old steering rod that had originally been part of the canoe. It was showing signs of wear, so we took it to the workbench for a thorough cleaning and repair. We began by disassembling the steering rod, inspecting each component for damage. After cleaning off rust and grime, we reinforced it by welding additional metal supports where needed, enhancing its strength and durability. To achieve the desired design, we shaped the steering rod to resemble the handlebars of a motorcycle. This design was not only visually appealing, but also allowed for better grip and control. After carefully welding the new parts together, we polished the entire assembly to remove any rough edges, ensuring that it would fit comfortably in hand during operation. With the steering rod fully restored and customized, we proceeded to mount it onto the canoe, aligning it carefully with the opening we had cut earlier. We started by cutting pieces of foam into the desired shapes for the shark tail and fins. Once we had the foam pieces shaped, we began attaching them to the back of the canoe. We used a strong adhesive to secure the tail and fins in place, ensuring they were firmly bonded to the hull. We began by sanding down the entire surface of the canoe, ensuring it was smooth and free of any imperfections. Using various grits of sandpaper, we carefully worked over every inch of the hull, paying special attention to the areas around the tail and fins where the cement had been applied. With everything set, we began to paint the canoe. Using a high-quality marine paint, we applied the first coat with even strokes, ensuring that each section was fairly covered. The paint glided on smoothly, enhancing the curves and shapes we had carefully crafted throughout the restoration process. As the final layer of paint dried, we stepped back to admire our work. The transformation was remarkable. The canoe now looked just like a real shark, with its sleek body, realistic fins, and eye-catching tail. The attention to detail paid off. It was hard to believe that this was once an old, abandoned canoe. Finally, the moment we had been waiting for arrived. We carefully transported our newly restored shark-shaped canoe to the river, brimming with excitement and anticipation. This was the culmination of countless hours of hard work and dedication, and now it was time to see if everything we had done would pay off. "Oh, this is amazing!" we shouted, laughter and joy spilling from our lips. The canoe responded beautifully to every command, slicing through the water effortlessly. We could feel the power of the engine beneath us, propelling us forward as we raced along the river. The wind whipped through our hair, and the sensation of freedom was intoxicating. One by one, we took turns navigating the canoe, each person marveling at how well it performed. It was stable, responsive, and surprisingly fast. We couldn't believe our eyes as we zoomed past the riverbanks, laughing and cheering each other on. The feeling of riding in our shark-shaped canoe was indescribable, a perfect blend of adventure and camaraderie. From the moment we had salvaged the old canoe to the final touches of paint, each step had brought us closer to this unforgettable experience. The satisfaction of seeing our hard work come to life on the water was beyond compare.